Right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, happy morning. Hope you're doing well. We are here today, June 21st, 2025, to talk about what I would consider two of the coolest stories in numismatics. The creation and the destruction of two mints that many people just don't know about. That's ironic that people don't know about these two. So we're going to be talking about this. I want to thank one of my brand new subscribers, Littlefoot. I've been chewing on this for quite some time to determine whether or not I wanted to present this in a video or a live. And the interest and the discussion from them came out. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do both. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some amazing gold coins, sharing some mintages, talking about the various denominations of the coins, talking about some history of why these coins were put into place. So we hope you enjoy the discussion. But first, let's do the pleasantries. Let's say hi to everybody. We have Ground Fog. How you doing? Joseph Cooper, thank you so much for being a member. Scotty Aquati, hope you're doing well. Good day, Forrest. Woodsy, new subscriber, thank you so much for being here and being a member. I appreciate you. Eric Math, how you doing? Mr. Nodelman, good day, Mike. How you doing? Thanks for being here. Eric Byer obviously is one of my panelists, along with Paula Bloom. Thank you too for being here. Definitely appreciate all of your support. Jackalope, good day, sir. Hope you're doing well. That is another channel member. Thank you so much for being here. Jack Riley, what's up, my brother from another mother? Hope you're doing well. Mr. Pedro, how you doing? Good to see you. Neil Hahn, hi. How are you? AZ Coins, as always. James Valley, thanks for coming in. I appreciate you guys. Thank you and gals. Thank you so much for coming in. Eric, thank you so much. 5 gifted membership. Eric is always good to do that. So let's see who does that. James Schultz, Thomas Tripton and Nickel, Daryl USA, Apita, and Elizabeth Flood all got memberships thanks to Eric Byer. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate you, brother.
Anytime. Well, almost anytime.
Almost anytime. I do appreciate that. And you guys know that if you're going to support the channel, I enjoy this because it helps people feel as though they are connected to the community. So I still appreciate it.
They're somebody's now.
They belong to somebody. And it's fun to get a notification that says, hey, you've been gifted a membership.
It is. I finally got sick of getting the freebie and just sucked it up and paid for one.
But you know what? And we talk about this. Nobody is under
like a year's worth of freebies from your channel.
Yeah, probably. But there's no obligation for anybody to be a member or a subscriber to this channel. It's not one of those things. If you guys want to do it to help support the channel, by all means do so. There are other ways to support the channel. I mean, my God, watch the videos. All right, it's the easiest one. Flying Dutchman, Steve, looking for silver. How you doing? Hope you two are doing well. Thank you so much for coming in. So we're going to be talking about history. And you guys know I like my history, right? We're going to be talking about the early financial history of the United States and how these things came into being. And if you watch the video that I did on these two mints, you'll know that there's a little bit of a misconception with people thinking that the first major gold rush in the United States was in California in 1848. Now, a lot of people knew about the westward expansion. They understood the 1949. Again, we talk about San Francisco 49ers. 49ers came from the gold-seeking people who were flocking from the east to the west. And a lot of people think that, as well as the major gold rush that happened up in Alaska, were the United States major gold rushes. And in fact, there were 2 gold rushes that happened on the East Coast long before, decades before the gold rush of 1848 and the identification of gold in Alaska a little bit later. Those 2.
Is the Carolina nugget still the biggest nugget ever found in the States?
I think it is. Is that the one that was held at by the Binyans?
That's the one that, no, Gary, there was a guy found it, and that was one of the reasons they opened up one of these mints. Is
Yeah.
that nugget was so big.
Yeah, there's a number of reasons. But finding the gold was massive, right? Again, we're talking about a fledgling nation. We're talking about a nation that had just um, uh, created itself just a few decades prior. But there are some things about this. So when we talk about the discovery of gold, the first one actually happened in the 1790s. Okay, and this one, I've actually learned some information since I put out this information. And so some of it is going to be updated. If I speak it slightly incorrect, please bear with me. I've been looking at this. I probably spent close to a full week's worth of work researching in this. But what you get from local knowledge, local information, are things that generally can be lost to history, right? We used to pass everything down, not through the written word, but through speech and stories. And for many, many years, that's how histories were transferred. In local areas, these stories are still maintained. And one of these is that the initial significant find happened in Mecklenburg, North Carolina in 1790s at the Reed Gold Mine. But there's actually discussion that it actually happened a little bit farther off, and they weren't given credit for it. Now, some of that is because records were burned during the Civil War when these two mints, well, there were actually three mints that were taken over by the Confederates, and the Southern battling, of war during that the 50s into 1861. Um, Monumental nugget, 103 pounds, found in Cali. That's the largest nugget.
Yeah,
I think that's the one
Peter's
owned by
nugget
Binyan. Yeah,
is the one I'm talking about, and it's the largest this side of the Mississippi.
yeah,
It's 28 pounds, 448 ounces.
yeah. And so,
103 pounds. Whoa.
yeah, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, that was the Binyan nugget, the one that you actually saw at the Nugget Casino. That thing's a monster. But anyway, let's go ahead and dig into the kind of the setting. So again, a lot of people think about the gold rush of 1848 as the first major gold discovery, but it didn't happen. The first one, as I've just stated, Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, happened in the 1790s, and then a few
1799.
decades later, in the late 1820s, there was a discovery in Georgia, and that was at the Benjamin Parks location. Now, this was happened during what they initiated as the Georgia Gold Rush. Now, I'm going to take a second and I'm going to explain something very important. During the history of an evolving nation, we've talked about this before. There are many people in this stream that may watch this or that are in the stream right now that are of an indigenous historical set of families or tribes. There were some major atrocities that happened during this time frame. Anything we're talking about when we talk about the westward expansion, when we talk about Dahlonega, we're going to be talking about what happened to the Cherokees. I'm not going to be going deep into it. If that's a discussion you all want to have, we can have that discussion. But I want to take a few moments and acknowledge some of the atrocities that happened during this. And we talked about this just before we came live, that anytime there's a precious resource anywhere in the world, if you're in Africa, it is going to be over water. If you're in the Middle East, we're going to be talking about oil. If you're in certain places in South America, you might be talking about cobalt, or maybe you're talking about lithium. So there's a number of places throughout the world where this happens. Yoxnav, that's exactly right. It's the same everywhere in the world. But I don't want to, quote unquote, sweep this under the rug. I want to acknowledge the atrocities that happen and remind people. I don't want to get into a he said, she said heated argument about what happened in the histories of these items. We can have that discussion later, but I do want to take a moment and acknowledge it because there were some things that happened that were pretty sad during this time frame. And again, we're talking about the abundance of gold, right? That was a really big one. So without Paula and Eric saying anything, and I'm going to open this up to chat. If you saw the video, you know
words,
the
shut up.
answer to this. You notice I have to tell them, don't speak, right? Shh.
That was funny.
And that is, can you guys in chat give me a reason, one of the primary reasons for them wanting, Eric's like, I'm sitting on my hands. Just drink your coffee and we'll be with you in just a
I'm
moment.
drinking it.
But what was one of the primary reasons that these two mints, the Dahlonega and or Dahlonega, depending upon how you say it, I always say it wrong, and the Charlotte mints, those are the two mints that we're going to be talking about. The third mint in this is New Orleans. We're not going to be talking about New Orleans. Most people are very aware of the New Orleans mint. But Charlotte and Dahlonega seem to just kind of disappear in the fray of things. Dahlonega is the other D mint, right? It's and this is going to sound terrible. It's the big D of the two.
It's the big D.
You know, and then Charlotte, obviously,
If you
a
want
lot
me to
of
be
people.
quiet, you got to stop saying stuff like that.
Yeah, well, but a lot of people like Charlotte will say like Carson City is the dual Charlotte mint, right? Because Carson City is the other C mint. Not to be confused with cement, but so put in chat. So do you guys know why it was so important and why so many people wanted the Dahlonega mint and the Charlotte mint to be opened? Don't say it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give you a second to do this. I'm going to come back to this here in just a second, but I want you, and you can be researching, you can look it up. And Mike's like, I do. Put it in chat. But again, I want engagement because through having discussions, that's how we retain this information. So I want to make sure you really understand this. But when we looked at the need for whatever this particular was, there were two important people, Christopher Beckler and Templeton Reed. Now, these are people that began to start utilizing and creating their own coinage, again, back in this time frame prior to the 1835 and 1853. Azure, perfect. There you go. Transporting. That's one of the major issues. Thank you, Azure. I appreciate that. These two people began producing their own coinage for local use around 1831. Now, their coins were good quality, but there were struggling issues with balancing the weight. Now, we've talked about this in in various streams and various videos. One good thing about collecting or stacking government-based coins is that you know exactly the weight, you know exactly the makeup of the coin, you know the dimensions, the diameter, the thickness, you know the purity of it. And during this time frame, these things hadn't really been put into place. There were still accurate weighting, determination of whether the gold was purity. Sometimes it was better, sometimes it was less. But the feds demand a very specific regulated precedent for that particular area. And so for about 4 years, they went back and forth and they started to, petition the government to say, hey, because as Azure stated and Yoxnav said logistics, but because of this, the gold being transported, number one, was at risk of being hijacked. That was a major issue. But number two was also looking at the fact that Philadelphia was the one receiving a lot of these. Now, Philadelphia, and there's different stories. We talked about this with Paula and Eric just before we started. There's mixed stories about whether Philadelphia was on board with this or not. But they were definitely behind, and transporting that bullion to, via stagecoach or via train or whatever it might be, was a serious problem, and people were losing their butt. Up until this point, the only way they really had the opportunity to do this was to barter. And in bartering, it's the person with the most information that's going to win. And so it was, in many cases, people didn't know who was getting the better deal, right? Because you can have a giant nugget but there's very little gold in that nugget because internally may be, packed with crystals or packed with iron ore or packed with other stuff. So in many cases, there were definite issues with who was getting screwed in some of the deals that were occurring. So after much petitioning, March 3rd, 1835, Congress finally passed the legislation of the Mint Act. And this new act allowed for the establishment of 3 branches. We just talked about those: Dahlonega, Charlotte, and New Orleans. Now, this also includes significant funds. We're talking about $50,000 back in 1835. That's massive money. If you take that money and put it today, we're talking about, $100 million. But they were specifically for purchasing a site and the construction in Charlotte. That was $50,000 for them to just put a mint in that particular area. Find the land, find the stuff, do whatever you needed to do. But they actually started looking at, what needed to happen. You have a single recognition place, which was Philadelphia. They couldn't effectively move this stuff. We needed to shift towards a decentralized minting structure because everybody knew all they had to do was monitor the outskirts of Philadelphia and rob the trains and the stagecoaches that were coming from there, right? This was actually one of the patterns when things moved to San Francisco and things moved to Carson City. They would still have the same things when you talk about some of the major players and thieves of the West. In particular, when you're looking at some of the stagecoach robberies that happened during this time frame. So they knew they had to make sure that this massive entity that was sitting in the middle of the country at that time, it was the middle of the country, needed to move from a centralized location to regional approaches. And so in that, they created those 3 additional mints to cover the mines in the established areas. So the first one we're going to talk about is Dahlonega. Now, Dahlonega is why I mentioned the atrocities that happened in 1838. Now, this was a very tragic period in American history where it coincided with the removal of the lands of the Cherokee Indians. Now, we talk about some of the movement and the westward expansion, and there were a lot of good things that happened for the U.S., but at great cost to many of the indigenous tribes. So again, I don't want to get too much into this, but I do want to make sure people understand that history is dark. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Unfortunately, what we can't do is we can't forget about the histories that are there. We have to talk about them, and we have to understand the times that they were there. Those things are said, they're done, they're past, they're marked into history, and we need to acknowledge those. But I do not want to focus on those, and I do not want to get into arguments about those because there's nothing that we can do to change the historical context of the violent seizures of the indigenous lands and resources that happened during this time in U.S. expansion. However, saying that, there were some significant challenges of being a frontier town that had to be overcome. We talked about the transportation, but we're going to be minting coins. So how in the hell did they get the machinery there, right? They had to transport stuff. They had to move stuff. They had to worry about how were they going to distribute this information? There was a ton of logistic issues that came from federal oversight of what they called local realities or local realties, which are businesses or generational items that had been on family land or family area, or, again, up until 1853, it was okay for you to have foreign coinage in the United States. Up until 1853, it was okay for you to utilize foreign coinage as currency in the United States. It was also okay for local people to be minting their own money. There were a lot of changes during this time frame. And in fact, we talked about melting silver the other day, and some of the potential problems with melting silver. This was another one of those times in history where they would melt down the US gold and they would sell it. And again, this is why a lot of the laws came into play. So there were a lot of issues that had to happen. There were a lot of things that had to be overcome in order for these mints to become effective. Now, once they started to come up, they understood the local patronage, the local hurdles that were being done. And as they started to understand and develop these things, we started tailoring each mint's function, right? Looking at the resource that was there. You'll see that in New Orleans, it wasn't just gold, it was gold and silver. However, Dahlonega and Charlotte were gold, right? And so they started getting through. They started kicking up 1839, and they started running through this. And then a major event happened. And the major event happened and affected both of these mints. And that major event was the Civil War. Well, the problem with the Civil War is that during these time frames, and I stated this before, it's hard to find a lot of information because when somebody takes over a war, they burn a lot of the information. They destroy local records and then they take it on because again, you know, part of war is to take over the local area, to take over those resources. If you're talking about oil, if you're talking about um, uh, fuel lines, if you're talking about gold, silver, water, whatever that resource might be in that area, you take that over. That becomes part of your effort to fight the war. And when this was taken over, again, this changed. And so there were lots and lots of issues regarding records being destroyed during this time frame. Now, when we talk Azure, that's absolutely a great question. Does anybody here have any Dahlonega mint gold coins? I know Eric does. Eric, or not Eric, Mike. I know Mike has some. I'm sure they probably sell a ton in his shop. I personally don't have either one of them. It's on my bucket list of coins to get. I want to get one of each of those. Yeah, I knew, Mike. I knew you would have one. Those are definite things that I definitely want to get. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the mintages and stuff that happened at each individual mint here in just a sec. But I will tell you this, the coins produced at Dahlonega were known for higher quality despite some of the operational challenges that they faced. Some of the coins exhibited what they called a green gold cast. And it's hard for me to understand kind of what they meant by that. But when you look at gold, like the picture, if you're looking at the vertical stream right now, you'll see gold, there's a dime there. It actually has kind of a greenish hue. And so that's because of the level of copper, if I'm not mistaken. The shop does, yeah. But that that level of copper, the level of the other minerals, when they did this, sometimes, because again, remember, we're not talking about gold coins being 999 fine. We're talking about these coins being about 90%, or, you know, anywhere between 18 and 22 karat gold during this time frame. And so there was going to be silver, there was going to be copper, and because of this local alloy, there were some irregularly struck planchets, and it gave this kind of a greenish hue to some of these coins. So when you see this, if you look at an old Dahlonega coin, you may see kind of a greenish hue, and that's why. However, in 1838, the region's gold mines nearly were exhausted, and it was the boom in California that actually helped maintain Dahlonaga's operation, because a lot of gold actually came from California as this gold rush was kicking off in California and was brought all the way across the nation by those gold rush people who lived in that region, having gone to California, sought their wealth, and then they brought that back to Dahlonega, and Dahlonega sold it in Dahlonega. So when you're looking at the mintages of the coins, you'll see that Dahlonega actually has a higher level of coins. Now, I'm going to be posting in chat a link. This is a link at PCGS. Everybody can get to it. Let me pull this up and post this in chat. This is PCGS. This is going to talk about the various mints that are there. They talk about the 1854 Princess $3 coin. The mintage was 1122 or 1120. These were $3 gold coins, and the $3 gold coins are usually a little bit harder to find. I do have one $3 gold coin. Unfortunately, that coin is from Philadelphia, not from Dahlonega or Charlotte. There was also a $1, a $2.50, and a $5 denomination that came from these, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those here in just a few moments. But let's go ahead and break down the various coins. Now, the $3 gold piece from Dahlonega only happened, if I'm wrong on this, bear with me, because the mintages and the production numbers, I was finding different things, and I've tried to take what I could find as the commonalities. But the $3 gold piece is kind of one of the most sought after, because in Dahlonega, it was only minted in 1854. Now, I'm going to try to put this in chat. If it doesn't work, then it's going to, and it's, I don't think. Is this going to work? Let's see if this actually shows up the way I'm hoping it will. And it said no. It's not going to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this. Let me see if I can take screen capture of this and show you some of these. Because again, the sheet that I'm working off needs to, I didn't do a pretty little graphic. I wish I would have done a pretty graphic that actually showed these. So let me get back to, see if I can take screen captures. Well, okay, yeah, so let me pull this up. Okay. All right, let me share my screen. Oh, close the wrong window. Give me a minute, hold on. I should have had this up, but I closed the wrong window, so I do apologize. That's the wrong one. There we go. Okay. Let me share my screen. Hold on, I apologize. Why is it not allowing me? Oh, it's going to give me fits. Hold on just a second. I've got to do something else. I apologize, folks. Here we go. Now we got it. There we go. Now, this should be coming up, and you should be able to see this now. All right. So what we got here is this talks about the amount of money that was. Hey, Matt Winch, how you doing? Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being here. So this is the production. This is the lifetime production that happened during the Dahlonega and the Charlotte events. And this is a side-by-side comparison. And again, as stated before, if you look at this, you'll see that 20% more of its deposits that happened in minting these coins came from Dahlonega, but they actually came from the California Gold Rush that was brought back by the people who had left the Georgia region and went to California. And if you look at this, again, we're talking about a little bit of a misnomer here, right? And so why would I say that? Well, number one, you're talking about $6 million that was produced between 1838 and 1861 from Dahlonega, which is a little bit more than what happened out of Charlotte. Again, we explained that came from California. Got it. But when we talk about that price in today's standard of gold, we're talking about massive money. Again, when we were talking about a $5 gold coin was $5. Now a $5 gold coin, especially from Dahlonega or from Charlotte, can be depending upon the size of the coin, anywhere from $500 all the way up to $25,000. And so when you're looking at the amount of available funds for the weight in gold, these numbers are specific to that general time frame. But I want you to look at the right-hand aspect of this particular thing and see that the total mintages were very small, 1.4 and 1.2 million coins from these two mints, respectively. We're not talking about massive mintages of coins. And not only are we not talking about massive mintages of coins, we're looking at the general focus. So this is a breakdown of the coins that were created at each one of the mints. Okay, so you're going to see that at Dahlonega, you had the 5, the 250, the $1, and the $3 gold piece. When you see Charlotte, Charlotte didn't actually do the $3 gold piece. That was a one-off that happened in 1804. And because of that rarity, because of that, it's definitely one of those things that is something that is sought after, right? It's definitely one of those items where people are looking for that particular. And because of that, the value of these obviously skyrocket, right? There's a huge demand for things that are either scarce or rare. Now, for chat, and Mike and Paula and Eric, please don't answer this. This is something that is going to be something, and what you can tell me is the scale. I don't remember the name of the scale. But when you're talking about the difference between scarce and rare, does anybody know what the difference of those two are? I know a lot of people, he's like, oh, my mouth is closed. But what is the difference between the word scarce and what is the difference between the word rare? And sitting on hands again. Yep, zip it. In other words, thank you, Paula. And this is important to understand because you'll see these things when people try to sell coins and they'll misutilize these words. They'll say, oh, these coins are rare. These coins are rare. When in fact, it's not that they're rare, they're scarce. What do they mean? What are the differences between those? But what I will ask Mike, Paula, or Eric to do is if you remember the scale, the rarity scale or the scarcity scale, you can put the name of that in there because I can't remember the name of that. But you'll see that, again, once again, you have a situation where you have these coins, these here. Now, again, we're looking at the history. We're looking at what happened during this time frame. All these things are available, and I put these in the URS scale. Thank you. The rarity scale. I think it's, yeah, I can't remember what the name of it is. I think Eric's right. Universal Rarity Scale. Thank you. R1. Yeah, perfect. So again, we're looking at, kind of the history of this. So we talked about 1835, 1838 was when both of these started really minting these coins. There was a little bit of a difference because one mint was established in 1837. Charlotte was done a little bit earlier than Dahlonega. But what happened because of the Civil War was that in 1861, both mints were seized by the Confederate forces, and therefore they were closed. Now, a lot of people don't know, or maybe they do know, but a lot of people that I've talked to don't realize that Dahlonega is no longer with us. Dahlonega actually changed over to the Georgia College for a little while and then burnt down in a fire. So Dahlonega is not with us anymore. However, at Charlotte, there was a change. So it changed for a little while to become another building. It went to an assay office, and now it's the there's a really neat what's the word I'm looking for? A museum that's there. In fact, it was one of the first art and coin museums ever to happen in Charlotte. And so if you ever want to see a really cool place, then I have some information there. Eric Bayer says that the museum is definitely worth going to. And so, but again, we talk about necessity, right? Necessity is the mother lode of innovation. And so we look at the Dahlonega and Charlotte mints, but when you look at the time frame, we're not talking about a very large time frame. 1838 to 1861. That's not a very big lapse in time. It's actually very, very narrow. And when you look at the time frame and you look at some of the stuff that was produced from here, It's really cool. Now, if you're looking at the vertical side of things, you will see that I have been cycling through tons and tons of imagery, various gold coins. I've been showing pictures of places in Dahlonega and at Charlotte, primarily Charlotte, where they allow you to actually go and pan gold. You can actually go through and find things like that. You can actually participate. It's a really neat program. But you'll see the variety of coins that were there and the 3 or 4 denominations, depending upon which one happened. And we talk about the value of gold. And I'm going to move basically from talking specifically Dahlonega and Charlotte. But what I want you to keep in mind is when we're talking about this next set of discussion, when we move to this next phase of discussion where it's going to be all of us just talking, I want you to consider one thing. As coin collectors, as numismatists, we always tell you to keep in mind when you're looking at silver or gold, when you're at platinum, palladium, to keep in mind the consideration of numismatic value, right? Because your numismatic value might get to a point to where it outweighs the point of the precious metal in which you're buying. We see this a lot in Morgan silver dollars and peace dollars, and some of your old coinage where silver spot's $36, but this coin's selling for 50 or 60 or 70. Well, you definitely see this, and I'm not going to get into it because I know nothing about it, but eventually we'll have people on to talk about the ancient side of the house. But again, when you're looking at numismatic value, so I want to talk about, and I'm going to drop this down. If you want to see more on those, again, they should be included in the community page of mine. So if you want to go see those graphics, they should be there. If they're not there, then reach out to me, let me know, and I will send you a copy of the infographic that I created specifically for this discussion. But again, the purpose behind these things is, to kind of talk and give you the history about what happened at Charlotte, what happened at Dahlonega. But I want to talk about, yeah, exactly. Scarce is more common than rare. And a lot of people, Mike, exactly. 1909 SVDB is not a rare coin, right? People talk about it as being a rare coin. You talk about the millions that were minted. Now, granted, when you talk about the run, the specific run of Lincoln cents, it has the lowest mintage, and because of the lower mintage, it has a higher premium. But your mintage, the rarity, isn't always the only thing that accounts for this. I always talk, and this is Chuck's thing, right? I'm stealing this thing from Chuck. And he always talks about the 1924. Is it 1924 or 1922? 1924S? The one that in MS63 or 64. Yeah, 26S. And you can talk now, Eric. I have lifted you guys' silence bands.
Okay. Yeah, it's a 26S. And high grade 26S is a tough coin. But it goes back to 31S 14D. 31S, I mean, while they're not rare, a 31S, the mintage is way lower, but less 14D survived.
Yeah. And so understanding scarcity and rarity are extremely important, because you'll hear a lot of people utilize rarity because people think of rare and they think, oh my God, there's very few of them. When most of the cases, the coins you're going to be talking about are listening to the cone of silence. Yes, that's exactly right. It's tougher in XF than it is in
rarity when
MS.
you talk about numbers and mintage, and there's also rarity when you talk about condition.
Yeah, exactly. So it's easy for people to lure you in. Now, let's talk about rarity when people are talking about the rarity of the 2025 nickel, or the rarity of the 2025 cent.
Stop using that
Not
term.
even close, right? They're produced massive, hundreds of millions of coins.
People just need to stop saying rare.
Right, exactly. And so now, why do I say that? Well, because in most of the cases with these Dahlonega and Charlotte coins, you're talking about coins that are scarce. Now, the 1854 $3 is a little bit more on the rare side, right? You want to talk about some of the double or the pattern coins, or some of the onesie, twosie strikes. Those are rare coins. You want to talk about some ancient Greek coins? Those are rare coins. But most of the time when we're talking about US coins, it's not going to be rare. They're going to be scarce, or they're just going to be misunderstood and inappropriately stated. And so that's more likely what you're going to run into. So when you're looking...
Exactly, Mike.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is the point, because
remove it from your vocabulary.
When we talk about Dahlonega, when we talk about Charlotte, people don't see these. And just because they're out of sight, they're out of mind, doesn't make them rare. Just because you know that there's a lighter run on these doesn't make them rare. It does make them very sought after. There's a lot of people who are seeking these, and so your prices are going to be a little bit higher. But understand the difference between scarcity and rarity. That's extremely important. Because when you hear people talk about, oh, this penny's rare. Oh, this mintage of 500,000 American Silver Eagle with this special label is rare. No, it's not. It's not even scarce. It's a tactic. It's a sales tactic. So understand what true scarcity is, what true rarity is. The Starry Night by Van Gogh, there's one of them. The chances of you being able to buy that would be rare, right? There are true antiquities, true rarities to be found. There's not very many of them when it comes to U.S. coinage. Matt, love the Blackbeard bar. Yeah, Paul and I were talking about that just beforehand. It's an amazing piece. I was very fortunate to get that. That is Mutiny Metals did that piece. It's absolutely beautiful, cool piece. But I want to reiterate, as we're talking about Charlotte and Dahlonega, most of the time we're talking about scarcity, okay? Not rarity, scarcity. So it's important we teach you guys the correct language. Now, with that, I want to talk about something that Paul and I and Eric were talking just before we started. And this was something that is, because of price of gold right now, we're in a unique opportunity to get some amazing numismatic deals. Amazing numismatic deals, especially on two types of coins. And one of those is gold. Okay. And I don't remember, there's a funny name. It's called a whale or something. When the numismatic value reaches or you're not paying any more for the numismatic value than you are for the value of the precious metal. Where normally that wouldn't happen. I don't remember what that special term is called. I wanted to say it's like a white whale or something funny. And when that happens, you run into a situation where it's a really good buying opportunity. Now, many of you know that I work with Tiger Stacker on Stack Elector, and one of his quote-unquote teachers is Lynette Zhang. And Lynette Zhang for years has been saying, buy pre-33, buy pre-33. And for a long time, I was like, I don't necessarily agree with her. I don't think that it's necessarily a really good thing to do, because, I mean, while I love pre-33, and if I was going to stack gold, I'm going to lean towards that, the premiums in many cases were just too high. But now we're in a situation where the price of gold is so high that it's coming to or meeting the numismatic value. So, Mike, I want you to chime in here. Paul and Eric, I want you to join the discussion in this. What are your thoughts about pre-33 gold? And do you think now is the best time to buy? I firmly believe that right now is a really good time to buy pre-33 gold, because I think you're getting the numismatic value basically for free.
I think anytime's a good time to buy pre-33 gold.
Yeah, I think anything with a high quality, high grade coin, I don't think you can go wrong with it. It's one thing to buy a common date, high grade coin. It's another thing to buy a coin that like the Dahlonega or Charlotte Mint. You can't go wrong. I don't think it's going to depreciate.
If you can afford it.
So Mike says absolutely not. What do you mean by absolutely not, Mike? And by the way, you do know that you have the standing invitation to come up anytime you want.
Yeah, he probably has more insight on this. I do know
because
that
he wants you to wait till the price of gold goes down.
well, the price of gold has actually been dropping the last week, I think.
Well, it's actually gone down quite a bit, yeah.
It's gone down like what, $2? No,
I mean, unfortunately, all my gold except for one gold coin.
No,
I bought in the early 2000s, and it was like $360 an ounce.
Yeah, at one point we actually dropped about $150 in gold. There was a really good buying opportunity. It's gone back up, but you're going to have checks and balances. Anything like that, anytime you have a major spike, you're going to have increases and decreases in the opportunity. But I think, and again, if Mike doesn't agree with me, and now I will defer to Mike.
Yeah, he would know.
He will know way better than me. But when I'm looking at it, I would buy it because you're getting like the numismatic value for free, in my opinion. Now there are coins that cost well beyond their melt. Those are okay.
And that might be a dealer thing. You know, we were talking about coin dealers.
That's fact, Mike.
Those are okay, but that list is getting smaller and gold isn't done.
Yeah, and gold's going to continue to rise. Absolutely. That's a fact. And we do know that.
Right. Right.
But my thing is that a lot of people right now are just thinking about the gold. Now, we as coin collectors, we also obviously are paying attention to the numismatic value of things as well. But I think the focus is on gold, and the numismatic aspect of that hasn't quite caught up.
Yeah, I think that what Mike said, I think that's kind of the point you're making.
That is the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so we look at that. We looked at what happened in the 70s with the Hunt brothers and the super high premiums that happened. And I think that the fortunate side of numismatics is that when the prices of silver started to drop, what didn't drop were the prices of Morgans and the prices of peace dollars and the prices of those other silver coins. They maintained their value a little bit better than the silver did
for a while.
For a while. Well, eventually they did come back down, but there's an opportunity that produces kind of a unique buying and selling opportunity, right? And so, Ida, sounds like fun sitting outside enjoying the swing and the breeze. That sounds very nice.
You don't think so, Mike? Yeah, I don't know. I don't deal in any of that stuff anymore, so I get everything externally.
So Mike says he doesn't think that will be the case here. It'll be interesting. Vote for Pedro says, Hunt, they made good catch up. That's true. But I think there's opportunities here. And so, again, we are not investor consultants. We don't do financial advisors. That's not something that we do.
It's out of my wheelhouse range.
But again, these are discussions. But the reason that I say this is because as I look at buying gold, and I just picked up something that wasn't pre-33, because again, if I have the opportunity to invest in gold, I'm gonna focus on silver. But I don't mind investing in gold when I have the money and it's there, and I find a good price. And I picked up a really cool piece related to Pearl Harbor. At a really good deal from one of the great members of our community. But
I can tell you that if I had my choice between a gold bullion coin or gold bullion versus a coin, versus what we were talking about, a $5 coin.
I would pick the coin.
Dahlonega, I would pick the coin all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, bullion has more gold. To me, it doesn't matter. I want
history.
Beautiful coin, right? I want the coin with some with a story behind it. Because I'm not just paying for the gold, I'm paying also for the history and the story behind the coin. So,
and coin collectors usually love history.
Right.
But it doesn't. So as a collector, I'm collecting other items. Like I'm going to be picking up some other items. Now I picked up a couple ounces of silver, but I was able to pick up something that I liked. You can't serve both masters. Yes, you can.
I only serve one master.
But you've got what you have to do is you have to understand what your end goal is.
I have
right?
a master, and then I cheat a little bit.
What you've got to be careful when you do that is, and I think all of us have made this mistake. I think everybody in this chat has done chasing the shiny, right? Where, oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's neat. I'll give you a great example of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a great example of it. Why did I get this? Well, I got this for Bifrost. She plays Call of Duty with her.
It's upside down.
With her uncle. No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Okay, the reading looks upside down. I can't read what it says.
Yeah, the whole package is upside down.
It's upside down.
It says Call of Duty. It's right side up.
The other
on the bar.
Masters, yeah, the actual bar.
I'm looking at the bar.
There you go. Sorry.
See, no, I like that. That's what I'm saying. I've got some silver rounds. That's why I say I cheat on my master sometime.
Yeah.
And I do buy silver here and there. But I don't go out and to say, hey, I want 200 ounces of silver.
But then I also pick up stuff like this, right? And these are not rare.
Yes, Pedro.
These are just things that, I just like having these things in here. And then I also do stuff like this. Eric, you'll see that one. That one's very
right?
Yeah. Which is the, 1DO01, it's a 2024 cent. These are varieties that are, this was found at Copper Coins. And I have these things, they go in my little book. And so again, I collect what I collect. It just is what it is.
And there's no right or wrong in collecting, so everybody knows. Collect what you want.
But you have to have an end goal, right? You have to have an end state.
Sure.
And I have two very specific end states when I do this, and I make a determination. I have a pool of money, and I'm like, is my pool of money going to go more towards 333? Is it going to go for that gold? Is that the thing that I'm going to be putting it in? Am I going to be putting it into my stack, or do I just want something shiny and cool? And when I talk about stuff that's shiny and cool, that will never replace its value. I think of my Voldemort one that I created that was created by Ringmaster Ray, or something even cooler, which when we were, excuse me, when we were talking about Memorial Day and Wounded Warriors, we started talking about World War II, and this is the red poppy of the fields of Flanders Field, right? So I picked this up because this is a 2-ounce coin, way overpriced. But when I look at this, it reminds me of Flanders Field and the loss of life suffered that basically bled the ground red at some of these battles during World War II and the immense loss of life of World War I. And these things are historical reminders of very tumultuous times in our world history. And so I collect for a number of different reasons. And you have to be okay with doing that, right? So you have to collect what you want to collect. But speaking of Ringmaster Ray, what's up, brother?
Shark tooth.
I have a really cool shark tooth, right? And so actually I think I have the first copper one he ever poured.
Yep, I got the second.
And it's one of those things where
Cool.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's one of those things where you're going to collect the things that you collect. But when I'm talking about Delanago and I'm talking about the scarcity of these, there's a premium because of the scarcity of that particular coin. And I haven't picked one up because I just haven't pulled the plug yet. There's other things that are pulling my curiosity. Eventually I will make that determination and I will pull that plug. And you can find these, some of these are really, really good price. And so thanks, Coach. I appreciate you, brother. Hope you're doing well. But again, it's important that you have a strategy. And, my strategy bounces from time to time to the collector's mentality, to the stacker's mentality. And I do, kind of what I want to do. Now, one thing I'm reducing is a lot of the little funny stuff. Now, this was a gift by Pedro. This is the Blue Angel round. He sent me to this
Mhm.
from the Wounded Warriors. It's an
That's a
absolutely
cool
cool
one.
little piece.
Super cool.
Why did he send that to me? Well, because I was in the Navy, and he wanted to say thank you, and he wanted to support me. It was a really cool little gift.
Well, you got a plane ship spacecraft thing anyways.
Morning,
I love my ships and my planes, and I love military memorabilia. And I've got something that I picked up from Big Flip that they were stickers, and they're not numismatic pieces, but what they were is people created um, Kennedy half dollars, and then they tied every specific battle that happened in World War II, and they put an image on a coin tied to a card, and on that card listed every specific. It was just a way of them collecting a war book, but it was all on Kennedy's, and I picked this up. It was a really cool thing. There's not a lot of numismatic value in it, but as far as war memorabilia, somebody took time to actually build this, and they talked about Korea and World War II and Vietnam and all these people and all these amazing generals, Hap Arnold, and you know, um, our five-star generals, Ike, and some of those folks that they paved the way. And looking at some of the Army uh, structure, we talk about the corn cob. If I say corn cob, you guys know what general I'm talking about, right?
I would hope you're talking about a British general, right?
No, General MacArthur. General
Oh, all
MacArthur
right. Yes, yes,
actually
yes, yes.
had the corn cob pipe. Um, and so you collect things that you enjoy, and you collect things that you love. And I love military and U.S. military history and world history. Yeah, just amazing, amazing people. And so sometimes you collect stuff that has virtually no numismatic value, even though you want to do that. Um, but in the case of Dahlonega and in the case of Charlotte, there's a massive um, uh, following in these particular ones, and it's kind of they're the forgotten mints, right? If you know about them, you know about them, but if you don't, I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of talk to you a little bit about these. But again, all of the thanks goes to one of my newest subscriber. His name's actually on the screen, and that's Littlefoot. Littlefoot actually came to me and said, "I want you to talk about Dahlonega and Charlotte." Right? They don't
That's
get
great
talked
stuff.
about enough. I would love for you to talk about that. It was on my list of to do things, and I was like, done. So I want to thank, because again, as you guys come up, Mike, last week with the Father's Day and everything that happened and coming up and talking about the most hated coins, that was his idea. And again, these are the things that you guys want to hear and the stuff that we have fun doing. So as you guys come across that stuff, please share it with me. I don't mind doing the research. It literally, I probably spent 40 hours worth of research grabbing this information to share with you guys, but I don't mind doing that. I enjoy doing that. And
That's the
so
best
I
part.
want to thank Littlefoot for making the suggestion for this, because it was a fun project. It was fun to get this stuff and to learn a little bit more and find out who the players are, and look at some of the mintages. And again, we talk about the mintages, and I posted that link. One of the largest mintages there, I think there's three of them that actually were above, or four of them that were above 10,000. The 46 Charlotte, $5, 12,955. 1838 Charlotte Classic Head, 17,179. 1838 Charlotte Mintage, 18,140. 1849 Charlotte, 11,634. These are some of the bigger mintages of these particular ones. And you talk about the Dahlonega, you're talking about the 1856D Liberty Head 2.5, the mintage 874. The mintage for the 1840, 3,532. The Indian Princess, I love the Indian Princess, 1,111. Absolutely, Mike, anytime, fire away. But we have people in chat, and again, Mike works for a pretty amazing coin shop. Harlan J. Burke, right? Go check out them, and they, talk with them and ask those questions, and they'll share stuff with you. We have other people in here who have really good resources and contacts when it comes to this stuff. Use them, right? Mike, now on Instagram. Oh, they're going to be on 8 o'clock tonight. Is that 8 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific? 8 o'clock what?
We're on Instagram now too.
I've been on Instagram for a while. I just don't hardly post anything.
There's not a lot of coin,
Too
like
much work.
informational coin stuff on Instagram.
Not good. There's a lot of it over there. It's just not good.
That's a figure that nobody knows, Azer.
No, so this is, okay. This is exactly why I talked about the melting silver the other day, right? And this is why I saw, there's more than one of these, but I'm going to talk specifically about one because what was stated, I understood why they said it, but it was totally wrong. And it's like, melt them. That just means it's going to be more money because the mintages are less. Well, how do we know that?
Right.
Where is that documented? Where is the fact that somebody sent 250 pounds of bullion or 250 pounds of 90% silver to a refinery? Unless they cataloged every single coin, we have no idea what was melted. They may know the difference between the 40 and the 90 percenters. Great. But they don't know what the years are. They don't know what the mint marks are. So we don't actually have accurate numbers. Even within Morgan and Peace dollars, we don't have accurate mintages. These are assertions and assumptions based off of some of the stuff that they did track, right? Some of the stuff that they do know
numbers
about.
Off the press. That's
But
it.
we do not know the true, genuine mintages of any coins. A great example. Mike talked about this last week, and I've done a short about it because when he was mentioning that, looking at the silver and most hated coins, we pulled up the Pittman Act, and him and I were kind of on the same page. We were talking about the same thing, but going down different venues. But I had pulled up because I knew Morgan and Peace dollars. Unfortunately, Jack Riley mentioned Peace dollars as one of the most hated coins, and I had to unfriend him on Facebook. I'm just kidding. I'm totally just kidding.
Poor Jack.
Because people do some petty stuff like that. I'm not petty. I'm just joking with him. But come on, you guys know this. People unfriend you on Facebook for less, right? But we were looking at the Pittman Act, and he was like, there were $270 million during that time of coins that were melted. And I'm like, well, if you stuck them end to end, it's 6,400 miles of coins. Crazy, right? That's a ton of those. They did that pretty indiscriminately. They didn't catalog every single coin and every mint mark. They took entire runs of coins from the Carson City Mint. We don't know how many of them got away. We don't know how many of them were left. So how can you actually account to those mintages? We know we've talked about melting copper, melting zinc, and what happens. Are the prices of pennies going to go up when people start hoarding these? Actually, it has the opposite effect. And if we were listening, I invited a number of people to the chat that was happening the other day between Gray Sheet Whitman, and they had a couple other, John Flanagan, Hannebaum, or whatever his name.
I wish I would have made that.
And they were having discussions. They had different people on, and they were talking about some of the items and stuff that was there. And one of the conversations that they were having about was, what to look for, and where the Bagenbaum. Thank you. I can never say his name right. I have to see it in order to pronounce it. But there was some great discussion there. There were some great things, and one of the comments that was made, and I actually countered this, was that you can't make an assumption that people understand what you say means. And they were talking specifically about knowing the mintages of coins and how many are there, and what people are collecting, and the market, and what's happening and what's going on. And people talk about these things because they do them all the time, but they forget that not everybody speaks that language. And so it's important that we talk about, what is scarcity? What is rarity? It's important that we talk about, what are good, quote unquote, investments to make? Which ones do you stay away from? Mintages of coins. Even if they took, and let's say that everybody in the United States, okay, there's 350, 360 million people in the United States. let's say that everybody in the U.S. Kept one 2005 cent, just one. Okay, and they kept it pristine. They kept it dry. They kept it to where the worthless crap that's there in the zinc didn't get torn away. There was nothing there. There's no environmental situation. 360 million coins. And let's say that everybody in the US had one. Let's say every other coin, the billion coins that are left, got destroyed. Would that coin be scarce? No, not at all. There's so many of them, it wouldn't be scarce. Would the value of any other coin, because there was a massive melt off of that, cause the price of those to go up? No, they're already there. They're already placed. And so, hey, Julio, thank you so much for subscribing. Much appreciated. Thank you. Welcome to the community. Would the mintages of that, would they change? No, because they're not documenting what coins they're minting or what their coins are melting. So we have no idea how that's changing the end product. And so we've got to be very careful when people run their mouth about, how much it's going to cost or how little it's going to be, or, how, the big melting of all these silver coins.
Those are people that have an ulterior motive.
Well, but you got to be careful because you're insinuating something you don't know. Well, so again, go ahead, Eric.
Look at Lincoln Cents, 1909S.
Yep.
A lot of high-grade coins were kept because they were the first year. 31S, people thought they were going to discontinue production at the San Francisco Mint. There's a ton of high-grade 31S out there.
Yep.
Then 55S, when they did. I don't know how many people search wheat cents, but how many people actually find tons of circulated 55S?
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is, and we've talked about this with, I think it's the 1892, where they used to be $2,000-$3,000 per coin, and then all of a sudden this hoard was found.
Wasn't that a 1904 back in the 60s or something like that? There was one date.
I can never remember the date. Every time I talk about that damn coin, somebody has to correct me on the date.
There's a date that there was like 4 or 5 known examples.
Right.
And then the GSA.
Talking about the Morgan that was hoarded, and then
they found hoards of them, bags of them.
I think it was 1904.
So there was another one, and I think there were 2 hoards that were found within succinction.
Right. One was a bank hoard. Bank vault that had a bunch of stuff in it.
The Redfield hoard was 300,000 some odd.
Mike would know what date
it was. It was tied to something like Redfield and then GSA. There were 2 major hoards that came out during that time frame.
1903. We're all wrong.
We're all wrong. Yeah,
I knew it was around there.
Yeah, but there were 2 major hoards that were found during that time frame, and it went from there being dozens or maybe hundreds of them known to thousands and thousands and thousands of these coins, and the price went from like $2,000 to $3,000 per coin, all the way down to, I mean, quite literally $200-$300. Right, you can get them now, and
most of them were in uncirculated condition because they had just been sitting in a vault since their production.
Yeah, they've been sitting in bags, $1,000 bags, right? And so when people, and this is where folks, you have to be careful, right? All these people, man, you got to hoard these. You got to hoard these. You got to hoard these. We have people come into chat. Let me finish this real quick, and then I'll turn back.
Sorry.
2009, there were 4 coins that were done for the Lincoln Cents, right? There were hundreds of millions, billions of these coins created, and people hoarding them and setting them aside like they're going to be this rarity in the future. Folks, there's so many of them that it's just, now getting the higher grades may be a different story, especially over time, because the zinc falls apart and it rots and stuff like that. But you're talking about millions and billions of coins in this cent realm. Be careful falling into that. They talk about, we joked with FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it's detrimental to the buyer. Now, it's good for sellers because sellers can utilize it. They can sell money and do whatever. But even in the conversation that was happening with the Whitman and the Gray Sheet folks, it's like, yes, but you don't have to fleece people to make money. They have to do more in volume. But what's important is you understand that distinction between scarcity and rarity. And a lot of people use rarity because people think of rarity as more money, and it's just a selling point. So be very aware of that. Paula, go ahead and tell me what you were stating.
So I was just going to say the story on the 1903.
Okay.
So it says that in 1903, the New Orleans Mint struck, 4.45 million circulation strike dollars. They weren't needed in circulation, so most of them were stored in vaults, and only a few were released. So that's why they were, considered rare. And then in October 1962, then 030 was, let's see, that's when so anyway, this changed in October 1962 when to great amazement of the numismatic fraternity, the number of bags of mint state ones came to light. So that's when it changed. So up until October 1962, they thought there were only a few in existence.
That was the big dog in the.
That was the big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, because they weren't needed in circulation, so they stored them. They put them in vaults. And then out of nowhere, bingo, they came out and people were like, oh, crap.
Yeah. And that was another thing when we were listening to John and then the other guy from Gray Sheet. They were talking about, people hoarding certain coins. I'm not going to talk about that. If you want to go watch it, go check out the video. But one of the comments that I made in chat was, well, won't that cause a reduction of the price when they release these? And Paula was like, not if they do it slowly. And it's like, but you're going to assume that the people that come after you are going to know that you can only release one or two of them at a time. Yeah. Whereas if they find this hoard and somebody's like, oh my God, look at this. Somebody saved, 1,500 of these particular proof coins or 1,500 of these MS66, whatever rare coin is at a high grade. All of a sudden they come out, they flood the market because they're like, hey, it's payday. They get this massive influx of money. And now all of a sudden the market's flooded with these things and the price plummets through the floor. So there has to be discussion. And we've talked about this. I did this in a live stream where I couldn't sleep. I wanted to talk about it. I was chatting with some people. And again, it was one of those midnight streams to 2 o'clock in the morning. And I reminded people that you have to have a network of people surrounding you. In this network of people, you have to have new people to keep you honest. You have to have seasoned people to keep your information straight. You have to have people that know where to buy, and you have to know people that will be willing to buy in cases of things like SHTF or situations where you have to turn over numismatic items quickly. So you have to surround yourself with good, solid people who know this stuff. You can't be the purveyor of all the information because there's nobody out there who knows everything.
There's no possible way
to
know all the
information.
Way.
But there are people that you surround yourself with. And when they were talking about the Red Book, and they were talking about Gray Sheet and some of the things that are happening and some of the potentials that they're looking at when it comes to looking at increasing user feedback into what gets put into the Gray Sheet, right? And there were comments in the chat that were saying, don't forget about some of the more modern stuff that you can find in your pocket change. And it's like, but let's be real.
In the Gray Sheet or Cherry Picker's Guide?
In the Cherry Picker's Guide. Sorry, I said the wrong thing. Let's be real to the hobby, right? Let's put stuff that's actually errors and variety, right? I mean, we get a little bit crazy on this last one, and some of the stuff they put in was like, are you freaking kidding me? They took out good ones and they put out some really crap ones. So let's be honest to the hobby. Let's make sure that we track that and do that kind of stuff. Father Day? What? I missed something.
It was a dad joke. What holiday can't you kiss your mother? Father's Day.
I guess I don't get it. Sorry.
Oh, what holiday can't you kiss your mother? Father's Day. Okay.
Okay.
That is interesting. I probably it might have come from my dad joke
Okay.
thing. Because sometimes it drops some really stupid jokes. I did tell I'm going to deviate real quick. I was in a meeting at work on Thursday, and we were briefing some of our really big executive leadership. And it was Father's Day, and I got on and I did my little spiel about what was happening in our section, and I was telling everybody, and one of the senior leaders goes, "I'm really surprised that you haven't told a joke." Being Father's Day, the opportunity was there, and I said, "Well, actually, it's a professional meeting. I don't want to, do that. I hadn't been invited to tell a joke, but I tell jokes in my meetings all the time." And I was like, "But for Father's Day, I did wash the car with my son, and I am struggling. My back is killing me." And they're like, "Why is your back killing me?" It's like, "Well, maybe next time I'll stick with a sponge."
Nice. Hey, can I make a shameless plug for one of your future guests, Frosty?
Yeah, absolutely.
The title of this is The Greatest Gold Coins, but do you know why? I have been looking at Greek gold coins, and they are just awesome looking coins. And you can find out about them at the Ancient Coin Podcast. Start at episode 1. It means all the thing, and they're not in order, so because I thought I started at episode 1, and I started at episode 2, so I saw episode 2, 3, 4. Episode 1 has a lot of good information in it that the other episodes don't. Gets into a little background and a little reason why you should do things that you should do. I'll leave it for you guys to watch that. But it's a great show.
Yeah, Aaron Burke is amazing. The amount of knowledge that family has is, and we talked about this on Father's Day.
Mike is the co-host.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example, though, and I'm sure Aaron Burke probably knows. I mean, he's been it's his family business, but that's a great example of someone who teaches what they know.
Yep, he's not afraid.
Right?
Say, hey, this is what you want to do, and this and this and this, and if I can help you, I'll help you.
Kevin wants to know if that's one of his roses.
Yes.
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 It's all right.
That's why I brought it
out. That is the real pre-33 gold, isn't it?
Kevin does amazing work.
I was looking at the gold coins, and it just amazes me, because he goes on about, everybody wants to jump into Romans, but really you should, and this goes for modern coin collecting. Before you start jumping in and say, hey, I want to collect every dime there is, maybe you should buy a dime and one maybe, and then sit back and see if that's what you really want to do.
Show that again. I made that big.
You might want to collect something else.
There you go. That's one of the cool pieces that Kevin put together.
So he does silver stuff too, huh?
Oh, he does a lot of stuff. He does a lot of jewelry stuff. Kevin's very talented.
Isn't that pretty? So pretty.
But yeah, that is the real 33 gold.
Kevin, are you the one that does the trolls?
Hey, peace. And I just want to say hello. Are we still on?
We are. Yeah, we're still on. Hold on, let me.
Rest in peace to Ron Landis.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ron Landis died?
He did.
Oh, that's no good.
He died the day after I gave away one of his overstrikes on our channel. Very sad. Troll. I need a troll.
Yeah, I love these little things. I can't remember who makes those, but
oh my gosh, I played with those things as a kid.
Herman Ortiz. Herman makes those. Yeah.
I loved those little trolls.
They have all sorts of different color hair and stuff. They're really fun.
And on a rose, Kevin Silver Spur says, aren't they beautiful?
I'm
You know
gonna
my
put a
other one
link
that I
in for
enjoy?
Aaron Burke's
Yeah.
Get this
stuff,
out of the way.
Frosty.
Say again?
So
I'm gonna put a link in for that video.
Yeah, go ahead. I like these two.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Minions.
My minions. Yep.
Illumination.
Yep. There's my favorite minion right there.
Aw. What's that, Mike? I don't know. What's that guy?
There's
What's that
Bob,
one's-
Kevin, and
Bob.
Larry.
Bob.
Yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, so but again, we're talking, when we talk about silver and gold and stuff like that, there's a lot of people who do this kind of stuff here, or they make these kind of things like this, and or this is one of my favorite. This is actually, I see Ms. Coin Crew's in here, and she has a lot of poor stuff where she's actually done like full streams where she's actually played with all of her toys. And this is my Stormtrooper. This is probably one of my favorite one. This game also came from Ringmaster Ray. And again, this stuff, you'll never see your premium that you put into it back. So again, you have to make a determination when you're buying something.
Oh, that's cool.
Is there something that you're willing to do away with just because it's a cool factor? But when we're talking about things like Dahlonega and Charlotte, we're actually talking about the mints. We're actually talking about the numismatic value of these. It's really, really, really important that you look at these items and understand what they're looking at. Shroom Day has a mushroom head troll pour that is fire. I haven't seen that. Mushroom Day. There's a lot of talented people that come in. They do some amazing stuff.
There really are.
The one that I want, and I told him if he ever does another one, again, I have a number of Ringmaster Race items along with Big Red and Angry Warrior. Angry Warrior has done some stuff that is
I haven't seen Ringmaster Ray around lately.
Amazing.
He lost his puppy.
Oh,
his doggy. Week ago or so.
Yeah, we just a few days apart. We both lost our dogs
before you did.
Yep.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer. We just got in. My wife did the thing where they do the ashes and they give you back the little,
I have my doggy and my cats.
They did the paw print. And she's going to take the paw print and take it to an artist, and she's going to have a tattoo of the dog's paw print put on her. I don't know that I'm going to do it. I may. It might be one of those things that the two of us do, just because this was the first dog that I really was like, I love this little thing.
Yeah.
Dogs to me were always working animals.
We don't get them long enough.
It must be old age, Frosty, because the dogs I have now, I'm much more emotionally attached to them than I was when I was young.
Maybe. Yeah, and I mean,
in her golden years, and I just can't imagine what I'm going to be like after.
I think about Chuck a lot and Sherm.
There you go.
Yep. We were talking about that in one of his streams. I think they were doing the 42, and he was like, "Frosty, I saw your thing," and he's like, "I'm dreading the day."
Yep. And when they're like 13, 14 years old, you never know.
No,
we don't get them. We don't get a key.
And mine was 13.
Right.
Sure.
Yep. And she was doing really, really well. And it was on Father's Day, and I still have the images. I obviously won't share them because they're disturbing.
Yeah, that's
but
mine with the back. The doctor's like, "Oh, she's going to do this," and then she's getting better slowly. But then she will go back and she goes, "Well, she is old, so it might take her a little longer than it would take a young dog."
Yeah.
But she's walking now. She actually chased a rabbit yesterday. I was like, holy moly, when she really wants to go, she can go.
Sad.
It's just like us. We can do that once.
Yeah, there you go.
It's that old song. You remember that song? I'm not as good as I once was. Oh. That's I don't remember who sings that song. That was a good song.
And what's tomorrow's topic?
Tomorrow, I actually, I'm debating, and I wanted to leave this open to everybody. I wanted to look at two different things, and one of them that I've kind of done a little bit of research on, not a ton, was actually another topic that was brought up by somebody saying, can you do something on the educational series? It's outside of my wheelhouse. And I've spent about 2.5, 3 days kind of really looking at trying to find some of it. But this is the regarded as one of the best sets. It's a very small, limited run. Is the silver certificates issued in 1896 to 1899. There were 3 of them: a 1, a 2, and a $5 silver certificate that depict things like historical instruction of youth, the science of preservation, steam and electricity, and then the dominant force in the world. I've done some research on that. I've got a few photos. And this is something that I talked about before, but this is a little bit more in depth. Talking. So I may do that, or it's Sunday. I kind of want to leave Saturdays more towards the education, real instruction type stuff, and then do Sundays just stupid dad
I was
jokes.
going to say, because we saw the finest collection of those notes 2 years ago at the fun show in a private collection. They were all pristine. And I guess the 5 is really hard to get.
Oh, bye, Mike. He went over to the portrait side and said he's got to bounce.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I just saw his message. So,
all right. Mike. Well, thanks for coming in, you guys. You have a wonderful day.
You guys, and I'll see you tonight on your show.
Yes, yep, definitely. We'll see you over there as well.
But yeah, ask Chuck, because I think he's got a little insight on those notes.
Yeah, I don't know squat about currency.
I'll reach out to him
out of my wheelhouse, and I keep it there.
I think he knows because he had to know. You know, he did work at a coin shop before.
Bye, Mike. Have a good show. Tell Matt I said hi.
And Mike might be I think they sell a lot of currency at his shop.
I don't know.
He might know.
I like to speak on things I don't know anything about.
Yeah, that's something I don't know. And the reason I was asking because I like wing it way too much.
Yeah. They're pretty. I know those
beautiful artwork
like that are beautiful, and the artwork is beautiful, but that's about all I need to know.
Yeah, they're absolutely phenomenal. Let me see if I can
sent you an email, Frostbite.
Yeah, I saw the email. AZ, I'll get back on that. Let me pull this up and see if I can find some imagery on this.
Portrait side, the dark side.
Yeah, so let's share this real fast.
Dogs do roll. I have 2 cats, and once they're gone, I'm not going to get any more pets.
Well, we're at the same thing now. Me and my wife said if we do decide, we've got to make arrangements for them in case something happens to us. You know, we're at that age where, you never know. And these dogs, they last, they live, some of them can live 20 years. And cats too. But our cats and dogs are all starting to get old now.
Doug said he'd be preoccupied all day. But I told him I know he likes the history of those, and I wanted to offer him.
We'll do it another day.
We can do it another day. But I really want to do some more research on those, because they're phenomenal. These things are, the artwork on these is beautiful. And unfortunately, I just don't know anything about currency.
Yeah, I don't know much at all.
So I'm going to continue to research this for the person that asked about it. We'll probably do this next Saturday. But tomorrow I'll pull up some fun little trivia stuff, and we'll do some just general chit chat and stuff.
Shoot the shit Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, we do that a lot. So
you can also reach out to Sean because he's big into currency. Blue Ridge Silverhound, Sean.
Okay.
He's big into currency. So he's our currency guy. Him and Shannon. Shannon likes currency and he's learning about it.
So speaking of currency, AZ coins, I would send that very question to Blue Ridge. He would know better than I would. Or the other person that I would reach out to, knowing what you're asking for, is Kingdom Currency. Kingdom
is he asking about fancy serial number?
Yeah, star notes and stuff like that. So Kingdom Currency might be a person to reach out to.
Is that the dude that blows my mind every time he was on LiveCoin?
Yeah, he can talk nonstop for 3 hours without taking a breath.
That is Sam.
Yeah. Yep. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to
serial
numbers and stuff like that. The dude is like a human calculator. He can tell you.
That's what I was going to say. He's got an uncanny ability for mathematics.
Yeah. Just a smart dude. Smart dude.
Yep.
And he's a good fit for social media because he has that personality. You know what I mean? He has a
YouTube channel. So
I know. But I'm just saying he's got that high energy.
Oh yeah.
High octane, speak off the cuff, know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
Be spot on with his numbers. He always,
and he won't answer. He won't blow smoke up your.
No. But this is where
he will tell you only if he knows.
This is where it's very important that you stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
If you are good with something, and this is why, and again, I've had a lot of people that have said, well, why don't you just do more of just you? And I'm like, look, folks, I don't know as much as the people that come up on panel with me. Now I research, I love to ask Paula. Paula and I have got down rabbit holes where we're like, hey, let's look at this real quick. And then hours and hours and hours later, we connect back up and we're talking about all the stuff that we've done and looked at. And she will call me 2 days later and go, hey, I continue to look at this. And by the way, right, there are things that we enjoy researching and looking at. I like reporting on those things, but I report to you the findings of what I see, not the knowledge that I have. Now I gain knowledge every time I do this, but Chuck,
no, Sean's email is the LiveCoin Q&A's email. info@livecoinqa.com. That's his email. AZ.
Say that again.
AZ asked for Sean's email. I said it's info@livecoinqa.com. That's his email.
He has another Blue Ridge one, doesn't he?
No.
Thought he had another Blue Ridge one.
Unless he has changed it.
No, maybe not. I don't know. I only ever email him through the LiveCoin, so but
yeah.
I thought he had something tied specifically to his channel, but maybe not.
But if you send an email, I will make sure he gets it. Easy. You may wait a while, but
he's another one that has said he'll come up. I just have to coordinate with him.
Yeah.
It's funny. Everybody's busy until they're not, and then it's hard to align schedules, right? So, and he does a lot. He does his auctions and everything else. So
he's been doing whatnot like 3 or 4 days a week, hasn't he?
He does. Yeah, that's his thing now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, let's do this. Let's pose it to chat. What is there anything specific that you guys would like to kind of chit chat a topic? Not that I'll put together a really in-depth discussion like I did with the Dahlonega and what's happening there, but if people really want to know about a particular item and just want to have questions, or you want to just do a question and answer, we can do stupid dad jokes or whatever you guys want to do, and just make it our kind of the Sunday chit chat. We're more than welcome to do that. So I will leave that up to chat. whatever you all want to do. I would love to get, I'm going to be pushing out another video from the Anti-Counterfeiting Education Foundation sometime this week. So I'm going to be pushing out another thing. I'd like to, again, if you're not familiar with the ACEF, go check them out. They do a lot of cool stuff.
What's your favorite coin around to stack or collect?
And also, you guys, if you ever want Frostbite, to just do a show on his own, it does not hurt my feelings. This is his channel. This is his show. If you guys ever just want him, just email him, and it's not a problem.
And I've told people
out of your obligation, Paula.
What?
I says, are you squirming out of your obligations?
There is no obligation.
No, I just don't want anybody to feel obligated,
Yeah, and again, so what's important for people to understand when I talk about the way I do my channel, and Paul and I, one day we just need to go live and just talk like nobody else is here.
Like we talked before the show.
Like we talked before the show, because we have some amazing conversations.
You'll have to warn me. No F.
Yeah, we'll have to put a disclaimer up, because there are a lot of bombs that get dropped in our conversations. But the one thing that's fun about that is that we have discussions and we go back and forth. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But I have had more fun in some of the discussions that have been had, that I just sit here and type in chat the whole time, because there's great conversation and I'm learning just like you're learning. I learned a long time ago when training and being a facilitator. I facilitate very large projects, process improvement strategies, and my question is to direct people towards conversation. That's one of the things that I do in my job. And so I find that, hey, hold on just a second. Let's ask about, this. And Chuck and Eric, you guys have been talking, and I've asked questions to you guys. What does that actually mean? And then I just shut up, because then you guys are able to get in and really dig into that. Paula's talking about a particular coin. What does that actually mean? Can you show me an image of exactly what that looks like? So I don't mind facilitating. I don't mind. I actually do really well with that as far as my job goes. And I don't mind hosting as a facilitator. That's not a problem for me. What I want people to understand about my channel is that I'm about community. Yes. Seriously, about community. I want you guys to have the best information. And sometimes, and it's hard for me, but sometimes that means I need to shut up. And I need to let the people who study that know that.
When I'm on copper coins, my last words are, I'll see you in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I don't have to be the person everybody comes to. Quite frequently, I'm wrong. And if you ask Paula, I have probably removed more videos than I've posted, because she'll get an initial view
at that,
and I have to pull it down and redo it because the information's been said wrong or whatnot. I have had tons of you in chat. Vote for Pedro Sorcerer Stan. Fill up the board. There have been people that collect. Robert Pintoff is a great supporter of the channel. And I've gotten feedback from a lot of different people. Hey, that you misspoke that. Right coin, wrong president. It's the wrong Roosevelt. You said Teddy should have been Theodore. And so people correct me, and I'm gonna have to go back and have to pull it down and then re-record it and re-upload it. But I do that because I know I'm going to be wrong quite a bit. But what's important is that there's a community of engagement that happens. That matters more to me, because as you'll hear me say this a lot, the important piece of that is building a network of people that are strong in the areas that you're not, right? And that sometimes it's okay for me to be quiet. What's up, Muscle Shell? How you doing? Good to see you. I don't need to be right all the time. I like it when I'm right. You know, I mean, I don't know too many people who don't. But I don't have to be the one talking. Now, I like researching. I like teaching. I like doing that stuff. My mom affectionately calls me the professor, because if there's a problem, I will do the research and I will figure it out, and I will
That's
give
what
you
we
the best
called
information I
Ken.
can. Yeah, well, but it's a term of endearment. It's not, you know, it's not that I know it all. No, I just like to do it. And so it's just fun. But I don't have to be the star of the show. It's not my thing. And if anybody ever comes across and they say, well, you know, that's what his show's about, I'm sorry if I come across that. Vote for Pedro. As I've talked with Frosty about, I love channels with no skin in the game. All three of you are shall protect the community. I greatly appreciate for this. The community needs protection. Exactly. And I will tell you, I don't know that there's not an episode where I don't promote certain channels every time, because they're really solid. When Paula first introduced me to Jack Young, I was like, I can't reach out to him. I mean, like, he's so big in this. He's such a big icon.
He's
as
a
far
big
as
guy.
but you understand what I mean, right?
I know
like,
what you mean.
and then finding out Chuck, I started to establish a relationship with Chuck and a friendship with Chuck, and he would watch the channel, and he would comment and do stuff, and he invited, I invited him to come up, and he was absolutely on. Salivate Metal, right? He was one of the first interviews I ever got to have. But these people were like, hey, you know what? You want to teach, you want to do whatever. Let us come up, we'll help you. And then I started to find out who some of these people are. And I'm like, oh my God, like they're like the person to go to. Like, some of these names are huge. But they're all genuinely kind, and they really just want to help the community, and they all want, and I'll tell you what, Salivate Metal sent me a message the other day when we were talking about, when I dropped the video for this particular thing about Dahlonega and Charlotte. Do you know how freaking happy it makes me to see comments by Jack and Chuck? I always said Charles. Chuck and Jack Young and Jack Riley and Salivate Metal and Yankee Stacking, and some of these people to come into the channel and say, hey, great video. Hey, nicely done. You want to know more about it? Talk to this person. They're the expert in this. That is, it's huge for me. I enjoy that. And why is that? Because it benefits you. And I love what I do, but I'm here for you all. That's what I'm here for. So, yeah, Sal is a stud. I like Salivate. He's a good guy. So and again, Paula and Eric, I love you guys being up here every week. I have so much fun with you guys, and the breadth of knowledge, you know, and ask these two. I have no problem saying, hey, you guys, I need you to hold on a minute. Let me finish. And they respect that. They never, I won't say they never talk over me, because we all talk over each other.
Try not to.
It's the situation. Well, but no, I mean, it's the situation of doing this where we're not sitting in a room. It's like a Teams meeting. You ever sat on a Teams meeting or something like that?
Once.
But everybody wants to talk. It's just the way it is. So that happens. But for the most part, we're respectful of each other. We don't try to shut people down. And so it's a good environment, and it's good for you guys, and that's what matters to me. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up today. I've got a technician that is going to come and fix my microwave, because even when the door is shut, it still runs, and it got really, really hot the other night. And I was like, I have a gas
just
line.
Cheaper just to buy a new one?
Well, it depends on what the problem is.
Okay.
If I can pay the $90 technician fee and it's a $20 part, then I would rather spend $140 than.
Oh my gosh, how much are microwaves?
For the one that I have inside my, it's a built-in cabinet unit above my stove.
Oh, okay.
600.
Gotcha.
They're pretty pricey. But anyway, I'll be dropping the thing for tomorrow. I'm here in a little while. It'll just be general sessions.
Pedro.
You guys ask your questions. Bring some coins if you want to talk about it. We can show the different coins. If you want Eric to pull some coins up and maybe do Eric, you up to doing a coin search?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff laying around. I was thinking about that. A fun show's coming up, and I might go and see what I can get into there, and maybe we can do that. Look at what after the fun show, what I got.
Thanks, freaking awesome. Appreciate you, bud. So yeah, we'll do a couple different things. I'll talk with these folks and we'll do some stuff. And again, Sunday's usually just general chit chat. We talk about whatever.
Yeah, just let me know ahead of time if there's something I need to grab or whatever, or if I don't know.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Love you. Be well.
Be safe. See you tomorrow.
See you later, Paula.
Don't forget Coin Show podcast tonight, you guys.
Yep.
See you there. See you in the neighborhood.
If I can have one of the moderators drop that link in chat, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, Eric, thank you so much for coming up. Folks, I appreciate the time. If you guys like stuff like this, please do me a favor and make sure you send me a message. frostbitecoins@gmail.com and let me know that you're looking for a very specific topic, and I'll do what I can. I can't promise you it's going to be the following week. It may take a couple of weeks to pull the information together. If you want me to do a video on it so that you have reference to it versus a live stream, again, videos can take quite a bit of time depending upon what happens, but let me know and I will put stuff out there. I do have 2 videos coming out. One of them is going to be dropped here in just a little bit. We did do the educational series, or the educational series is something that I'm going to be working on. I might try to do that next week. Hopefully I can. But if you want to see the military histories, again, on my community page, I've dropped some stuff on the military histories. You can go back and look at that. Again, please just let me know what you want to see, and I will do my best to get that out there. All right, folks, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the support. Thanks again, Eric, for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate you dropping those. It's not required by anybody. Julio, thank you again for being a new supporter, and for the people that subscribed. Again, if you're here, you like the content that you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. It's free to you, but it does help out the channel. And again, watch the videos, ask questions, and I will see you in the streams.